Well, it's not like I can talk about creativity and say, well, please, please, please create stuff, and then do literally nothing, right? So in the previous video, I was trying to illustrate the creative orchestration happening in your brain during the creative process. And to do so, I obviously used my beloved AI. The initial idea was kind of creating a 3D brain, which you can rotate and see what's responsible for what. But I don't know if you've ever asked any AI system which creates websites or other stuff to make something anatomically accurate, because this is what happens. Anatomically accurate. And by the way, this was an anatomically accurate head. Considering that everything what's getting executed by Gemini in this framework is HTML code, it will never implement a real, normal, beautiful, aesthetic, and also anatomically accurate model. It will never do it, even if you try to change the code to any other kind of code, like GS or Python or anything, because it will tell you, yes, I've done it, but it doesn't do it. Eventually, it's just like it happens with like ideas not affected by AI. You have to simplify what you have initially in mind. All of us dream big, and every time you have an idea, it's something incredible, unbelievable, but then you can't do it in real life because it's very hard. It's very difficult. Probably you don't have the skills, probably you don't have the programs, probably you don't have the hardware, as in my case, for example. Gamification is not that bad. It's actually a good thing which might lead you towards another direction about which you didn't think at the beginning. Simplification in a certain way is one of the pieces of the creative process we've been talking about last time. So by simplifying the general brain model into just simple sections of the brain illustrated on a single screen. What am I doing with my hands? I don't know, okay, so magic happened. I thought maybe I could just put all the sections of the brain written down in different circles. And when you prompt it to Gemini, this is what happens. It's kind of messy, obviously. It's not user experience optimized. The AI knows that it's doing what you asked him for. Him, it, her, she, is. I don't know. How do you call your AI? I call my AI him. It's fine. In my personal opinion, it's fine. If I talk to a psychiatrist, maybe it's not. I tried to experiment with all the circles and organizing my ideas after a very, very big simplification. A second part, which is the bending of your idea, of your creative process, because you have to bend and move different pieces to kind of organize them into something you, at least you, can understand. I'm saying at least you because when you're creating an art piece, the nice thing about modern art is that it's not necessary that it would be understandable on the first glance. And it's actually not that necessary in design either. It's something very contradictory if you think of it. Design should be very intuitive and very fast and easy. But actually, the more intricate and enigmatic a design is, the more curious a certain kind of audience can become. And once everything is organized and kind of connected, then you can connect it to something else because you never stop creating connections. It's something continuous, and the more connections you can find, the more interesting the work becomes. At least in my humble opinion, of course. Why? Well, because narratives are how we actually perceive the truth. There are facts and there are stories. Just single facts don't stay in your brain that long. Stories affect you much deeper. You connect with them on a biological level, you connect with them on a hormonal level. Stories can stimulate the release of neurotransmitters, hormones like dopamine, oxytocin, or cortisol. That's why in any work you do, for design, for art, or anything else, you better use a story or a narrative. In my case, now the narrative was connected to the fact that there are more neuronal connections in our brain than all the known stars in the universe. So why not make this map a little bit more similar to cosmos, to spinning planets, or some kind of galaxy? After that, of course, I had this little thing. And I don't know why I'm filming that, because I know at the end this thing will be too small and I will just have to cut and do the voiceover, but fine. Well, actually, it's small anyway, so whatever. Pretty, right? Well, at least for me, it is pretty because it's black, first of all. In this case, I didn't just use black because I love it, but also because it's the best color for your attention. It recovers you a bit from the blue screens of your phone or laptop. First of all, black is technically not a color, but the total absence of light. Remember that roughly 30% of your cortex is dedicated to vision, and this absence of light stops the constant neural firing, which is usually required to decode colors or wavelengths, giving a good reset for your primary visual cortex, V1. Darkness also encourages alpha waves, a brain state linked to wakeful relaxation. This is why dark mode feels physically calming. It literally lowers the metabolic demand from your neurons. Finally, by eliminating visual noise, you free up the prefrontal cortex to maintain selective attention. It's a bit like soundproofing, but for your eyes, allowing you to spotlight just one single task. And now, after a good dose of black and relaxation, let's get back to the final step. At least I generally use AI to study, and in this case, this app could really help me to memorize all the parts of the brain and how they work in the creative process, because it's easy to read it, but not so easy to remember. The more storytelling and the more gamification, the more effect on your brain. Unfortunately, usually it's used in a very negative way, and brands convey their stories through storytelling and gamify your purchases. But it's also very useful when used in the right amounts for memory. Our brains are kind of used to the fact that they have to really do something to remember it. If you don't need something for survival, then it's useless information. Just reading something doesn't activate your system too. You are not actively thinking if you're just reading a paragraph in your book. But when you are actually playing something, you are all engaged and you, again, activate various parts of your brain. I'd like to admit it, here I'm not using the gamification term completely correctly because usually gamification implies a reward system. And actually, it's the reward system which makes things bad. Because if your brain always expects a reward from a game as a badge or point or something else, then it creates an addiction and a dopamine loop, which is very hard to escape later. If you think about it in the perspective of the attention economy, likes are just the same gamified experience. They are just like badges or coins that you collect in a game. Maybe it was this fear of gamifying too much and creating too much dopamine loops that almost all of my games, which I developed during my bachelor, were mainly almost without any kind of reward. The reward should be kind of natural. Be proud of yourself when you get the question right. So here again, no rewards and concentrating more on how to memorize everything. In the case of my beautiful spinning universe of brains, and it sounds awful when you just say it out loud, I decided to color code everything because, of course, we already know that colors really help us associate different things, and to add specific sounds to every planet or hemisphere or part of your brain. The application is made of two parts. In the first part, you just go through all the planets, and then you have to pass a quiz, which I clamorously failed, by the way. But using this kind of two steps verification, you have the chance to first associate everything with the color and with the sound, and then go through it again. Honestly, aesthetically, I still prefer the middle version, but the learning process was at the end quite useful, and hopefully I will remember to upload everything in my portfolio so that it's available for everyone. What was this video all about? About the fact that in everything you do, you can apply your creativity. While you use it, you also go through many steps. And every single step is extremely useful. It always adds value to the things you produce. So stop watching, go and experiment with AI, create meaningful, cool things which will help you study, which will help you express yourself, and which will activate your system to deep and very conscious thinking. Be creative, once again, go create, and have a wonderful day, night, or whatever. Oh my god, where am I? Why is this so low? Okay. Tell me. Then it's completely different. I don't know if I will put this part in the video because it was useless and very unclear, but okay. Some storytelling. Shortly, some storytelling never hurts. That's why. Shortly, some storytelling never hurts. That's why. Shortly, some stories. Where are you? Maybe aliens heard me right now. Oh my god, no, it was a pigeon. Some story. What was this video all about, despite my messy hair? I don't know what am I saying. I wanted this final closing like to be so pretty and cute and nice. And how do I close this video?